BYU and Ole Miss, can we just drop everything we're doing right now and set this game up?
It's not impossible if you're a BYU fan. I want to put it out first and foremost. BYU would do this. BYU has done this in the past. You'll have to remember back to that COVID season where BYU played Coastal Carolina on like a week or two's notice and said, you know what? Sure. It was wild. There were like murmurs across the country that BYU, could they compete at the top level? Can Coastal Carolina compete at the top level? And the two universities said, you know what? In 2 weeks, we both have an off date. Let's just kind of do it. And so they played a college football game. They rigged one up, and it was a classic. It was so cool to see. At the time, two teams that were mid-major duke it out. BYU, number 16 in the country, Coastal Carolina, number 12 in the country. That game was played on December 5th. And now there is a Reddit college football tweet which says, are there any reasons not to play this game a week from now between BYU and Ole Miss? Would be a tremendous game. Seems like both teams would be up for the challenge. I can tell you one team would be. BYU has done this before, which you don't see it very much in college football, but it's legal. It's within the parameters to say, you know what? Let's just play another football game. And I know after what happened between BYU and Colorado, the viewership that was picked up in the Alamo Bowl, that ESPN, who loves their money, would certainly do this. BYU would play. They would play Ole Miss. The problem is Lane Kiffin has a very hard time putting his money where his mouth is. He's a very good clickbaiter. He's great at the Twitter app. He loves utilizing the last one with his daughter and Chili's, and he's just trying to drive engagement on that app, and he's all talk. There's no way. There is an SEC program, Ole Miss, who is scared of playing BYU, because I can guarantee you, as they've proven in the past, BYU would get on a plane tomorrow, play it in Oxford, and take on the Ole Miss Rebels. And I just don't ever see Ole Miss making a move, an SEC team making a move or taking a risk like this. Whereas BYU, as Reddit College Football says, is ready right now. Both teams would be up for the challenge. BYU, certainly.
Lane really did some pretty impressive chest beating after beating a very depleted Duke team. Now, not in hoops, right? This was still college football. After beating a very depleted portal quarterback, gone, a lot of defenders gone. He was really, really impressed with that win against Duke, and said that we were going to run. They ran up the score to prove all the ills of the world wrong for them getting left out of the college football playoff. Never mind what happened in Gainesville and when they played Kentucky. But did a really good job of banging the drum of how good Ole Miss was because of what they did to Duke. But that wasn't even close to the best win that we saw in bowl season. If anybody has the best win in bowl season, it might have been the team we're talking about, with BYU beating Colorado and absolutely shutting down one of the most high-powered offenses that we've seen ever in college football.
Yeah, that was not the win itself that was so good for BYU, but the way they did it. It was total domination. There have been videos that have come out now of Shedeur Sanders on the sideline with the iPad, watching film in-game going, I don't know what to do. I can't. He couldn't read the defense because BYU, Jay Hill, had so many impressive things scripted for him. The best win of the bowl season wasn't Ole Miss over a Duke team that had mostly opted out, an Ole Miss team who had their best quarterback of all time, who, by the way, will end his Ole Miss career with 0 playoff appearances, 0 playoff wins, a loss to Kentucky. I mean, sure, a local legend and a guy who walks off campus as a free beers dude for the rest of the time at the local bar in Oxford, but what's tangible? What did he actually do where you go, okay, shoot, here's our trophy case that he's got a Heisman or he's got some Davey O'Brien? No, I mean Jackson Dart's good. I'll give it to him for sure, but what did he do that is world-beating all time at Ole Miss? And then they go and they beat a Duke team that didn't really play. They were on the third-string quarterback, right? They looked incompetent in the bowl game. And Lane Kiffin, craziest part, TJ, wasn't beating his chest about his own team. He was beating his chest about Alabama, who lost to Michigan, or about South Carolina, who lost to Illinois, and all of those schools are kind of that little pod right there. Even Georgia, he's beating his chest about Georgia, says go Dogs, as they lose to Notre Dame by double digits. Kiffin was touting other SEC programs that he thought should have gotten more respect. It's the SEC. There's not a lack of respect issue with the SEC, and they've got egg on their face. They got entirely embarrassed this postseason. Ole Miss, one of the few schools that has something to tout, and what they're touting is a win against a Duke team that, again, didn't really play the bowl game, whereas BYU played a full-strength, full-health Colorado and just floored them. BYU is the better football team of these two. I don't think it's that hard to argue that after you see the full body of work over the course of the season. And yeah, I wish we could see a matchup like this after a bowl year where Ole Miss still has a lot to prove because the bowl win they got wasn't very impressive.
This feels like a layup for a couple of athletic directors at these two schools to schedule this thing. We'll talk the hypothetical in just a moment again, but this feels like a layup to schedule a home and home right now. Like, what are we waiting on, and why is this not on a future schedule?
Yeah, I could mention again, it was actually number 13 BYU, number 18 Coastal Carolina. That was a 2 weeks notice, and they scheduled that game. BYU's ready. BYU's ready at any point in time. Their athletic director, their head coach, their entire program will tell you. If you want to question them as a unit, they will play you anytime, any place. And again, they have displayed that on 2 weeks notice, whereas a lot of SEC teams, it feels like at this point, are trying to get out of their contracts against Power 4 teams, their home and away games that are coming up. And Ole Miss is one of those. I mean, Lane Kiffin has talked about, what is there to play for? What is the metric that determines the college football playoff? And certainly I'm asking that question too, but for much different reasons. Kiffin's just looking for an out right now. I mean, they don't want to save money. They want to spend money to play worse teams in non-conference and avoid the likes of a BYU. Kiffin wants to talk a big game. He won't back it up by playing these big games, and it's a BYU squad that, like I mentioned, is ready. They would do it. There are Big 12 programs that don't need to. It's not very smart. I'll give it to you. It's not very smart. Just go 12-0. Beat whoever. If you go 12-0, you're getting in the college football playoff. But I know, having been around the athletic director in person at BYU, Tom Holmoe, that they are ready to compete against anybody, again, anywhere. They would do this, schedule it, do it. Ole Miss wouldn't.
It's like the big brother that knows he's bigger in theory, but just won't ever fight the little brother, right? I remember the first time I ever beat my dad in pickup basketball, just one-on-one, was the last time we ever played.
Yep.
When I beat him for the first time, my dad said, all right, you got it. You got me, right? And we stopped playing. That was the very last time. It's the same thing here. It is one.
It's worse. It's worse. You haven't even played each other yet. This is the neighbor across the street. You're watching the neighbor shoot hoops. And you're like, well, I'm 4 years older than him, but I've seen the way that he warms up. I'm not going to play one-on-one against that guy. That's the way this is. You're going to keep beating your chest. But the second that somebody asks you, hey, you want to back it up? Nope. I'm just going to tweet out that I'm going to not back it up.
Yeah. Go SEC, right?
Yeah.
Drake, where can people follow you for not just hypothetical conversations, but also all of your Big 12 content coverage?
Yeah, at LO Big 12 and at Drake C. Toll on Twitter and wherever you find your podcast with Locked On Big 12.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you.
Always fun, TJ. Pop in here and tell you today's show is brought to you by Game Time. You can attend the 12-team college football playoff through Game Time. Buying tickets with Game Time, which has the best prices on the market right now. They have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out the fluff so you can see incredible deals on great seats, and you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I use Game Time Picks to find tickets very cheap to go to the Orange Bowl, see Notre Dame play in the college football playoff. Browsing through the deals was such a breeze, and with the super deal in particular, it stood out as the best value for the entire game. The app shows you the total cost up front with a little toggle a feature and no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code Locked On. That's Locked On College for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, and that is guaranteed.